whichever you start with, make sure you end up doing both so you can get the feel of them. That's the 4-inch paring knife. Yep, so that's a longer paring knife. If you want a shorter one, we can get you a shorter one. One of the things that's a little bit easier to do is you use more of the bottom of the blade. Try that because it's closer to your hand.
I'm not sure about you. When you were little and
Let me grab you a smaller
they
knife
told you
too.
you could do it all the way around and down to here, you cleaned it off and dropped it on the floor, whatever letter came out. Try with this one. That was the letter of the manual that we were having.
I've never heard that.
I told you you were chewing
Down.
gum.
I don't know about that, but.
It's up there with jumping rope.
Used to do that.
And Jack.
We'll get to the core later. Yeah, we'll get to the core later. Many people are just trained to use paring knives. This, you can control how thick or thin it is really nicely. The paring knife is also not just used for peeling. We'll show you when we get to the salad part where you can section out oranges, you can peel tomatoes with it. So there's certain things that I can't really peel because the peel is so soft.
That's on the east side.
Right.
So he is on the west side.
So there's, and again, my objective tonight is to teach you guys some skills. Even if you would use a peeler for this normally, I want you to feel comfortable with paring knife, whatever you want. I don't have any.
Right.
Isn't the divide?
Oh, I know it isn't.
Yeah, it's crazy. We all were raised on it, but it's not each other.
We got the pros over here. All right, how are you guys
I always
doing?
know that.
Look at that. Nice. We're gonna get. Don't worry about the core, guys. We'll get to the core. We got our first victim.
And Gratiot, I think it was, are the 3 arteries.
No. Go ahead and do the potato. We got 2 potatoes and 1 apple for everybody in the bucket. So.
They didn't count Michigan because it was a major
One
road
thing,
going
by the
from
way,
north to
everybody,
south.
can I have your attention? Everything I teach you guys tonight is about skill and technique. It's not about speed. So it does not matter how fast you get any of this stuff done. The skill building and the speed comes over time as you continue to learn how to do this better and more effectively, just like anything else. So don't worry about how fast or slow this is taking you. Do it safely and do it properly is the key. It's all about technique. Yeah, they're nice and slow.
Well, this is what I usually use it. Peel off less.
And then, yeah, don't see how thin you can slice that?
Oh, and that's
I like this knife. Well, he's saying this one's not the same thing. I got one that I but I never used it for anything.
What's that, your paring knife? Oh, the bird's beak? Yeah. The bird's beak is really most effective on round things like apples, potatoes. I wouldn't use it on like a cucumber that's long and kind of.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, we're gonna do that in a little bit, actually.
I'm anxious to see the orange sectioning.
Cool. Yeah, I'll show you. I just did it earlier. It was fun.
No section. Really?
Sometimes they're like that.
Okay.
That potato's been in a fight. All right, and don't chop up your apple. We're going to do that in a bit. We're going to practice. We got more knives to practice with. That's true. We got tons of food. That's for sure. You're using the dull part of the knife. That's probably.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, that doesn't work that way. So
Oh,
there
I'm
you
doing
go.
it the wrong way. I'm like, why is it doing
Yeah, it's going to cut way better now.
It might actually cut.
So you know what? You got it wrong. Just start. Take it back.
And then you would bring it back.
Right.
And you would say, there's nothing wrong.
That's okay. Not the first person to do that. Don't worry. You all right?
The only one in this class.
Fix you up? All right. And then, if you get a chance, if you haven't done so yet, try a different knife. If you've been using the same knife, switch and try a different one. See what you think.
We all have the same number.
Are there, okay, if you guys need, we've got, let's see, we've got the 4-inch and the bird's beak. Okay?
I assume the white handed ones are those.
There you go. Yep, there you go.
2 potatoes and 1 apple.
That's it. So that's the bird's beak, yeah. And yeah, pass them around because we don't have 17 of everything.
This one is.
We are. We're gonna use the chopping knives for some of this stuff too. You poke yourself? That's the beauty. You can catch yourself before you get there. It's so sharp.
I swear. It wouldn't go through whatever we're going to
So that's why I cut the.
Yeah?
Pineapple water with.
Oh, so I did buy some frozen. Yeah. As soon as I finish some fresh one, I'm gonna.
There's
Because that was sweet.
Christina has a first aid kit.
And it was good. I do the regular, fresh one, but I thought as soon as I'm done with that.
But they had pineapples on sale at Myers, so I got 2 pineapples.
Fresh pineapple?
Yeah.
They just went on sale.
How much were they?
Well, we're gonna do the chopping skills in a bit.
Bushes is $4.99.
Actually, yeah. I got my cutting knives.
Oh, I thought you did this with the
Alright, so how's everybody feel about pairing knives? You guys feel pretty good about that? You guys feel pretty good about the pairing knives? Pretty comfortable? Jill, how do you like that one?
I like this one actually. Yeah.
Nice.
I was a little nervous about it, but I like this one too.
How you guys doing down here with those peeling? Doing pretty good?
Yes.
Okay. Yep, it's nice when it's sharp, you have control, you don't lose a lot of the meat. Yep, absolutely. You all set, Libby? All right. All right, so, all right, if you guys want to, if you want to take your shavings, if you guys want to take your shavings and get rid of your shavings, save the meat, save the big part. We're going to chop that part up in a second. So if you want to get rid of your peels, go ahead. There's several garbage cans around the room. It's hard to chop it, but I love it. I can just do it right here, I suppose. And then we're kind of gather meat. I didn't grab that stuff because I figured we were all going to be standing and we could just move. That was my thought today. Okay. we're going to move on to the chopping skills, if that's okay. Anybody have any questions about the paring knife at this point? And you use the different ones so you can kind of feel the different ways that they interact with the food. We're going to use whichever ones you like for the different stuff. We got some strawberries to cut with the paring knife here in a bit. We're going to section out an orange, so you guys will all get to practice that, which is kind of fun. But we're going to move on now to the chopping knives, okay? There are two different style of chopping knives that you guys have on the table here. One of them is the French style, and one of them is the Santoku style, okay? So there are two different style of the chopping knives, and then there might be an extra long French chef or laying around one of the tables, and there might be a little bitty 5-inch smaller one of these that's laying around one of the tables.
Is that the Santoku, the white one?
This is the Santoku, yep. The difference between these two edges. Yeah, that's the little 5-inch one. So, just again, there's a variety of them, so you guys can pass around and play with them, see which one you like. That's the whole point of it. So, all right, everybody, attention, please. All right. So the difference between these two edges, okay? The traditional French style blade has what's called the radius at the tip. So the radius is where it curves. So this knife curves right at the tip, and then it's straight pretty much for the rest of the blade. So this knife is good for chopping, but not very good for slicing, because when I slice, it moves back and forth. Unless I'm going to sharpen it constantly, then I can do whatever I want with it. So if you're like me, I use my knife for whatever the heck I want, because I'm just going to sharpen it right away anyways. So, but most people don't do that. So again, from a versatility and maintenance perspective, this one is basically chopping and dicing. I don't want to slice a lot with this because it's going to dull faster. The word Santoku in Japanese translates literally to slice, dice, and chop. So this knife rocks right here in the middle. So the radius of this one is in the middle. So you see how it rocks in the middle, and only one part of the blade ever touches at any given time. So this one I can slice, and when I'm slicing, especially if it's from a raised position, which usually I'm slicing from a raised position, the blade, because it's square, arcs up and isn't rubbing on the cutting board at all anyways. If I push it through things, if I'm cutting that way, again, only one part of the blade ever touches, so it doesn't dull the whole thing. So this one's a little more versatile. I can slice with it, I can chop and dice. The other thing I like about this one is how wide it is. I can scoop and move my food around with it as well, which is really nice, okay? They both are designed for chopping and dicing. I'm gonna do it up here just because I have the table. If you guys wanna kind of get up, walk around and gather, at least so you can see what I'm doing. You don't have to come super close, but for those of you that are back over there, if you don't mind coming over here while I show you these skills real quickly. So here's the French chef. So you got the bigger 9 1/4 inch versus the 8-inch basically, okay? And when it comes to the chopping knives, a couple of things are key for this. We've got some potatoes, we've got some apples, and then we've got some celery to cut as well. So one of the things, regardless of whatever it is that you're cutting, you want it to be kind of flat so it's not fighting you. So if I'm cutting an apple, for example, you know, it's fine that way. But if I'm cutting it into slices this way, it's rolling around on me and it's going to fight me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to square it off before I do that. And now, if I'm cutting it, it's not fighting me. So if this is a potato that's round, square it off so it doesn't roll around on you. So that's one simple little tip. The other thing is, the longer the knife, again, people see this giant chef's knife and they're like, oh my gosh, what would I ever use that for? Well, the longer it is, the more leverage you have with it. So just, again, something that's this tall, like I'm doing an apple or a potato, the longer the knife is, the easier it is to do that. The shorter the knife is, the less, I'm using almost half the blade. So again, I have to lift it up higher. It's a different kind of feeling. Now, when I get something down like this, it doesn't matter which knife I use, because they're all going to get an inch off the ground. It doesn't matter how, which knife I have if it's flat. So the benefit of having the long one is I can do bigger stuff. I can do bigger piles of things. I can take 5 or 6 or 7 carrots at once, stack them up, and do it with this guy, because again, it gives me the leverage to get through it with the knife. So when you're chopping your apple, what I would do, well, actually kind of a cool thing to do with apples, somebody asked about how to core them. Well, it depends on what you want to do with them. If I'm trying to make something fancy where I want to core the apple and have the apple still around it, the paring knife would do that. That's what I would use the paring knife for. Set it down like this and just kind of stab it and roll it and turn it. The core will eventually just pop out. But if I'm doing something like I'm trying to make little apple slices to dip in peanut butter or something like that, then what I'll do is I'll take the chef's knife, whichever one I want, cut it right down the middle, cut it right down the middle again, so I have quartered the apple right through the core. Now I can take my paring knife and scoop that out, but typically what I do is, since I have this knife in my hand, I just turn it sideways and I just cut the core out like that. So that way I don't have to dirty another knife, number one. Number two, it's now perfect, so I can just do this. And now I have perfect little slices for apple pie or dipping in peanut butter, whatever you want to do. So the technique with using these knives, again, this one is nice because I can slice and do all those things with it and not have to worry about it dulling. I can also do the same thing I just did with this. So when it comes to the chopping skill that we're all going to practice right now, okay? With the apple, you can quarter it and do that if you want to play with it, if you want to do that and break it down. But the general tips when it comes to the chopping knives is you always want to leave the nose down and you want to focus, keep the food on the back part of the blade. Another common mistake I see, well, two common mistakes I see, people bring these knives in all the time and they're dull as can be from here to here and they're sharp as can be the rest of the way because people are using them like this. So they never chop with it, they always just slice with it. If you're going to do that, use this because this has that utility edge and this isn't going to dull my knife by slicing. That's what it's designed to do. This one is going to dull from that really quickly and then it's not going to cut anything. So this one you don't use like this. You always keep the food toward the back of the blade when you're chopping. The further up the food is toward the front of the blade, the higher I have to lift the knife to get to it. When the food stays back here, I don't have to lift it hardly at all. So again, the further up the food, look how high the knife has to go. More things can go wrong when the knife is in the way. So here, nice and easy, I only have to lift it as high as the food. Same thing with the Santoku, the nose stays down. Now this one feels different because it rocks later in the game, but once you get used to it, it basically feels the same to me. Same thing, keep the food toward the back, and you just chop and dice. Once again, it's about the technique, not speed. You see people on TV going crazy, all that stuff. Scares the heck out of people. So you don't have to do that. That all comes with time, okay? The other thing that I don't care about right now is how you hold your other hand. You'll see chefs and they'll teach you, you do the curl technique or the knuckle thing, the claw technique it's called. So basically you just put your fingers down and then you roll them forward, let your fingernails kind of catch the food and use that as a guide. You're using your knuckles as a guide, which again, the knife never gets high enough to come close to my knuckles. So when I'm holding the food like this, I don't have to look at what I'm doing at all. I can feel exactly what's happening. Now, if I had the food up here, now that's not safe at all, right? So I don't care if you do that whole knuckle thing. All I care about right now is that you feel comfortable with it enough to use it at home. And before I knew how to do that, I just used my hand like this to hold it. And when I got too close to my hand, I would move my hand away and just keep going. That's all I did. Now I know how to do it through practice and whatnot. So again, one of the other cool things is you'll notice these aren't all strung together like celery typically is. Again, a sharp knife, and all it has to do is just barely touch the cutting board, and all of them stay right there. One of the other very unique things about our chef's knives is that they're hollowed out right through here. They're really thin. So sometimes when you're chopping a carrot, it goes shooting across the table every chop, it goes flying. The knife isn't made properly when that happens, or it's really dull and you're just forcing your knife through something. When it's thinned out right here, it's not pushing it away, it's just letting it sit there. So the food sometimes will stick to the knife, which I actually like, but then I just rake it onto something anyways. The other thing about this is chopping knives in general, you don't want to feed them, okay? Move the knife, not the food. Because if you're feeding the knife, what might you accidentally feed into it? Your fingers, okay? So again, I'm not really, it looks very simple how it works, but I'm not you're very subtly moving the knife every single time. So the knife, you keep the nose down, but it doesn't have to stay glued to the cutting board, obviously. It's kind of fluid as it moves. So as I'm chopping with it, I'm moving the knife, not the food, because I have more control over everything that I'm doing that way, okay? So basically right now what we want to do is just kind of practice with chopping. If you want some, actually let me see a potato here, and I'll show you what you can do if you want with the potato. The celery you can just chop up and have fun with if you like, just to get the practice down. But with a potato, if you ever want to do something like French fries, okay? So again, I'll square it off so it's not fighting me. And then what I'll do is I'll use there's what's called a high cut. So when you're cutting from above like this, you can it allows you to see the knife. And again, I'm not rubbing the whole blade on it. So I'm cutting from a position above, and then I can force it down through. So I do a high cut like this is what it's called. And I can cut it down into slices. I can then turn it sideways and then do the same thing. And I've got French fries now. Just that simple. If I keep cutting, I got home fries. Or hash browns, or whatever you call them. So real simple stuff. If you know how to use the knife, it's real easy to do a lot of those things that seem so crazy complicated if you just don't know what you're doing. So, and then if you want, hash browns, just keep chopping them into the little tiny pieces and you can kind of do whatever you want. It's all about the texture. And one of the things that we didn't really talk about, but you'll see in your packet, you've got these different knife cuts. The reason this is important is because depending on the recipe, you want different size food. So if I'm doing something that is a soup or a stew, I don't want big chunks of garlic that I end up biting. You want to cut it really fine down. A chef's knife, you just keep chopping and chopping and mincing all the way down into as small as you want it to be, and then it disperses more into the food. If I'm making a soup or a stew, I want more